For generations of scouts, one of the most important pieces of equipment wasn't a pocket knife or a compass or even a tent. It was the canteen. Hey, ScouterStan, let's talk about the canteen. This is a critical piece of equipment that all scouts and scouters have. And it's very important that we talk about not necessarily the piece of equipment, but what it actually means. Now, of course, you have to consider hydration. Water is one of those things that a lot of youth, they will fight you on it. It's like you have to do that. It's a critical thing. Heat exhaustion is real. When you're on a hike and you're thirsty, that's a problem. You need that canteen to be there to quench that thirst and to give your body liquid so that you can proceed. And it's one of those critical things that a scout leader needs to think about when they talk to scouts. Make sure that they do the right things, and if they feel thirsty, it's time to take a drink. That's the important part. Having your canteen around camp is a good thing. It helps quench the thirst when it occurs, and it keeps the scout thinking about not becoming a problem or an issue. We'll get more into that, but the thing is that it's probably one of the very critical pieces of equipment that a lot of scouts dismiss. Now, in a typical troop camping environment, or even a crew, or even a ship, you have adventures outside of your base, outside of your camp. And it's important that they fill up that canteen and make sure that it's potable water that they're willing to drink, and that's an important thing to have that available. That's the first thing before you leave camp, to make sure everyone has their canteen. Now, one of the big things is scouts and scouters. We discover rather quickly it's a problem when you're thirsty out on the trail. You don't want to use somebody else's canteen. You know what I mean? And it's important that that is available for all scouts and scouters. In scouting, we have a motto. It's called "Be Prepared." We should put it on patches. Oh, we do. That is a big thing, okay? We need to be prepared because you're going to be thirsty. It's a matter of time. When you're out in the weather, if it's hot or even if it's cold, you may need some liquid to quench that thirst. Now, this is an opportunity for some scouts at the very get-go is to take care of themselves. You can't take care of others if you're having a problem. So having a canteen is a critical life lesson for a lot of youth. They don't understand. They can run into serious problems without it. This is often the first real responsibility that individuals have in scouting, is taking care of your own canteen, making sure that it's with water in it, not any of these other things, any of the liquids. Water is what you need. It is really a big responsibility for a lot of youth. They might forget a pair of socks. They might forget extra batteries for their flashlight. They might even forget tent pegs. Okay, it does happen. But if you forget a water bottle, that could run into serious medical problems. Now, in scouting, as a scout leader, we often teach scouts to plan ahead. This is a great example of taking care of their own equipment, their own needs. This is a very important thing. And thinking ahead is one of the leadership things that a lot of scouts may not quite understand. It's critical that leaders make sure that they're maintaining a water bottle that's full, so that, when they're out on the trail, they're not going to have an issue. So planning ahead is a big thing for a lot of youth. Now, the other end of that is self-reliance. This is huge when you're talking about teaching young people to be responsible. This is huge as far as a canteen. Having that available is critical equipment. Now, having a water bottle is a responsibility to make sure that it's self-responsible, to make sure that it is filled and kept and maintained. This is a life lesson for a lot of youth. They just don't have that thinking ability, and that's a huge thing about teaching young people to be a leader. They have to have that responsibility on themselves, and it starts with something as simple as a water bottle. And that can also be a problem for accountability, to make sure that they have something there when they need it. As a scout leader, let's face it, nobody can drink water for you, okay? You're going to have it and available for yourself. The reliability of that is so critical to really good leadership, thinking ahead, planning for when you will need those things. It's immense as far as how that all comes together. It's so critical for all leaders to really think about that. Another great resource, and the water bottle is one of them, but one of the best resources out there are actually on the Scouting America website. So definitely check that out. There are things that a scout leader needs to have, whether it be on a tablet or a phone or some kind of portable device, where they have that information. And we talk about it in that video. So definitely check that video out about resources that adult leaders need to have available. You might have to look up something in the Guide of Safe Scouting. That's a wonderful thing to have at your fingertips. Now, whether you can get those as a printed copy, but they do change quite often. So that's something that can be done electronically. So check out that video. Now, there are many different types of canteens out there. One of the classic ones that I've seen are military. They're metal. They're actually metal. Some of them even have a lid, or which becomes a cup that you can actually make coffee in. I mean, that's a possibility, or tea. That's a neat thing. It's a military type of canteen. Very popular. And it seems to hold an appropriate amount of water for the trail. Plastic ones are out there. Everybody has an Algene, right? It's a brand name, but that's one of those things that you see quite often. I have my own, which is right here, and it's got a nice strap on it, so I have a clamp on my backpack where I can actually click this onto it, or put it in a pocket of the backpack. But it's plastic, and plastic is best, okay? Metal does dent. Plastic will shatter if it gets really cold, so you have to be mindful. You don't want your water to freeze. That's another thing. But this is my Algene I've used for years and years, and plastic is okay for most situations. Now, the disposable ones that you scrunch up and throw away or recycle, that's hard to do on the trail. So I don't recommend the disposable ones. A lot of times when you're at camp, scout leaders will, if somebody's lost their Algene, and believe me, camps have boxes of them, okay? People leave them in merit badge locations, at the dining hall, you name it. They will give out water bottles temporarily, okay, so that they can go down to the dining hall and look through the box for their canteen that was turned in. So don't recommend the disposable ones, because there's no real way to take care of those once you've consumed all the water out of them. Now, there are some that actually have a strap that you can actually wear the canteen. Those are great. If you've been on the trail, you will quickly learn that that was a mistake, okay? Because that strap is inevitably either going to break or become very binding in your neck, okay? And you don't want to be cramped up with heavy water in a canteen. Ones that clamp on to a belt, they're great, but you have to have that belt pretty tight. And when you're moving around and going through the mountains or something, that's not the best. One that you can put in your backpack is probably the better option. And then the clamp could actually be something that would clip onto the backpack. But you don't want to lose it on the trail. So there's a lot of pros and cons to that. So you have to kind of weigh all that out as far as appropriate canteen. Nowadays, we have canteens built into a backpack. It's a simple backpack that actually has a water bladder in it. Usually some kind of neoprene or some kind of material that's actually inside the actual backpack. And it will have a hose that comes around, so you can just sip the water as needed. So those are great, especially out on the trail. They're not really functional around scout camp unless you want a backpack all the time. A lot of times, they put them down, they lose them, they end up in lost and found. It can be very cumbersome as far as that type of canteen, that bladder system inside of a backpack. That can be lost really, really easily. And if it malfunctions, if it springs a leak, it's going to be a problem. Especially if you're 3 days out on a hike, okay? That could be a major problem. There isn't enough duct tape to fix that. So that can be an issue. And in that, you have this durability issue. You need to think about, is this an appropriate canteen or a device to hold water, personal water, for your event? If you're going on a major hike, you have to think about that durability, the reliability of that. Is it going to be there through the entire hike? Metal, that seems to be pretty difficult to spring a leak in unless there's an actual issue, like it gets run over with a vehicle. That's happened. But, it's amazing, all the different ones. Plastic ones, I think the Algene is probably the most common that I see at summer camp and all the different activities that scouts do. Having something that's reliable, that they can actually visually see. Each scout should have one in their hands. That's an important thing when scouts are out and about, having that canteen. Hey, before we go any further, I want to make sure that you know that you're personally invited to come and attend the Campfire Chat. We have a brand new one every first Sunday starting at 9 p.m. And you're welcome to join the chat room and ask questions and really get involved. Also want to thank all of the Patreon supporters of this channel. We also have a membership right here on this channel. So definitely hit the join button to get more information about joining us in supporting the ScouterStan channel. And in that, let's take a look at all of our supporters. Now, there are things that scouts inevitably learn when they run out of water. If they don't actually ration their water as they are on the trail and they run out halfway through, that could be a problem. There's nothing worse than being thirsty on the trail. I've been there. Okay, you almost think that there's like dirt in your mouth. It's so dry, and you start sweating more. I don't know how that's possible, but it actually is hard. It's a hard lesson to learn, especially for teenagers. They don't understand the importance of being hydrated and having enough water intake so that they can do activities. They don't understand it. And if they have additional problems, say they have allergies and there's pollen everywhere, they could be the sinuses start filling up, they're sneezing, runny nose, they have a headache. It just gets worse and worse and worse. If they had water, it wouldn't be a problem. Learning to fill up and top up their water. That is so important. Even at scout camp, a lot of scout camps have the new water fountains with the nice little push button thing that fills up Algenes or canteens of any kind. That's the wonderful thing. A lot of camps have that, and it's because water is so darn important. Now, as a scout leader, we can remind them. We can say, don't leave the campsite without your canteen. You have to have that container of water. That's something. And we continuously remind them, top it up, make sure that it's got water there when you need it. We can keep doing that, but a lot of times they learn from that defeat of running out of water. How important it actually is. And water can be heavy. If you've been on the trail, there's usually the food that's dehydrated needs to be rehydrated with water. So sometimes it's divvied up between different hikers, the water ration for that day's meals, so that they can actually have food. So it's an important thing to keep that in mind. And when you're out on the trail or on a canoe trip or out at sea, if you're a Sea Scout, you can't drink the seawater. You have to have potable water, and you have to have it for your food. The food will need water put into it. Don't eat dehydrated food. It's not a good thing. Without rehydrating it and preparing it to the package, what it says. Because if you don't, it takes the water out of you. It'll make it worse. So, and you can't really use the water you've proportioned for your meals to re-top up everybody's water. So that's that planning thing, leadership planning, of thinking ahead. If you're between check-in points out on the trail where there's potable water at those check-in points, you gotta keep the water management going and to make sure that you can make it to the next point where you can fill up again. So it's a leadership thing more than anything. Understanding that dynamic. How outdoor culture has changed in regards to staying hydrated. That is, when you go into dehydration, there's a lot of problems, medical problems that could actually come up. If you're running, having that bladder backpack thing is a wonderful idea. That is wonderful. My good friend Matthew runs a lot. He does these marathons. And having that backpack is essential equipment, like shoes, okay? It's so important that there's some way of rehydrating. And when you're running, you got all that activity, so you got to put some electrolyte powder or something in there that will give you energy that your body is using. You got to replace it. So it's the whole technology of it all is amazing. So go online, look at a lot of the stuff that's out there, and find one that's right for what you're doing, whatever activity it might be. That's the important thing. Water is a critical element. It's so critical that if you go to some of the fun parks, I live in Orlando, and we have fun parks all over the place. So, but you go there, and a bottle of water can cost up to $8. Yeah, it's that important. So planning ahead, having an Algene, using the water fountains, that's an incredibly important thing to have. When you're carrying it around, it's hard to go on the rides and stuff if you're at a fun park, but they have lockers. So and a lot of times lockers are included with the ride. So they don't want that flying off the ride. So they have the ability to put things like backpacks and all the the Algenes and containers, your Canteen, putting those away so they don't become objects that go flying. So that's the big thing. So thinking ahead is so important, and it will save you a lot of money. Always remember that the container may change. The container might be different for the activity, but the responsibility didn't. Now, the deeper lesson here is that the Canteen is the representation of a lot of the scouting values. Be prepared. The Canteen helps you do that. So having that responsibility for your own hydration, that is a huge thing for a lot of teenagers. This is also in relation to discipline. Being able to think, well, gee, this is the only water fountain I've seen today, so let me fill up my container so that my Canteen doesn't run dry. That's a huge thing for youth to really comprehend. That awareness is something that they've never experienced until they are asked to maintain their own personal canteen. It's huge responsibility. That's when it becomes self-care. That's very critical in a lot of the scouting values. Being a woodsman and going off into the mountains, or walking on the shore of the ocean, or sailing somewhere as a Sea Scout. These are adventures, and they're big responsibilities. And one of the very first things is to make sure that there is potable water for the individual. So as the activity gets more intense and they start sweating, they can actually do something about that, and their thirst will increase as the activity goes on. So it's a huge responsibility that's put on the individual. That's the big thing. I mean, canteens are on the surface, people might dismiss them, but they have more meaning to it. And that's what a scout leader needs to be aware of, and needs to actively get their scouts to maintain their own canteen. Now, this carries on into adulthood. If they're so lucky that they can go off and do things, and maybe even get married or something, and then have kids, and then get back involved in scouting, they will start thinking canteen. Start thinking that forward. Dehydration is not good. And most people, all the studies that I've seen and read, I'm not a doctor, but most of the studies are talking about most people are dehydrated. That's why they're having all these problems. It is so critical, and they carry that as an adult. And when they get back in scouting, they're on the hike. They say, well, We need canteens. Everybody has to have their own personal canteen so that we don't have problems out on the trail. And that could be true for sailing or canoeing or any of the activities we enjoy. That's a huge thing that adults learn and take forward as they give back to their community. They start teaching the young. Canteens are very important. Now, if they go into the military, canteens are critical pieces of equipment. They are to make sure that they're maintained, kept clean, are available and full. Okay, so when they're out on a mission, it's not going to be a problem. When you think about that, there are a lot of ties between the military service and scouting. Scouting has those ties. There's no denying that. But that's the thing. If you're in military, if you're doing that as a job, and you're in the military service, you're going to have a canteen, and they're going to make sure that you're going to maintain it. That's true at work too. Okay, so if you're doing roofing work or drywall or something like that in construction, you need a canteen. You need an Algene. You need some way of rehydrating because those outside activities can be very taxing, and you gotta have it. Now, a lot of scouts are going to be parents. Think about that. The scouts, the teenagers in your unit are going to be parents someday. You want them to have that awareness of hydration. A lot of youth get into medical problems by being dehydrated. So it's incredibly important that we teach these lessons now so they can carry it forward. Very important. And that helps with any kind of an emergency. If there's an emergency, say for instance somebody falls on the trail or they're doing an activity and they fall against a bunch of rocks and dirt, the canteen can be used to kind of wash that stuff off of the wounds. So it can be used in that situation. Of course, you want to make sure that when you're giving that first aid, that the water is good and it's not been sitting in a container for a few years. You want to make sure that it's appropriate for first aid. You don't want to create more problems, but the dirt on the wound can be washed off, and having that water available is critical. Managing how scouts are utilizing their canteen and making sure that they're keeping them, the maintenance is kept up. That is a critical thing. And it actually empowers them a little more so that they can be more comfortable in the outdoors. There's nothing worse than being very thirsty and not being able to do something about it. That's one of those survival skills, how to get water when you're in a very bad situation. That's a critical thing. A lot of people can live without food for quite a while, but water is not one of those things. You got to have it on a regular basis, and being comfortable with the outdoors is a huge subject with a lot of scouts. That's something that's coming up, and I did do a video on that, so check that one out, on having scouts get a little more comfortable, a little more self-reliant on their environment when they're out about in scouting activities, whether it be summer camp or you name it, all the different activities that scouts do. Being comfortable is one of those big things. Generations of scouts, I said that at the beginning. It's true. The canteen is a critical piece of equipment. And honestly, I would love to get some feedback on what your canteen is. What do you take on a regular basis? I've gone to meetings where I knew there was potable water on the way there and on the way back and at the event, but I brought my water. I had my canteen, my algae, which I do keep with me. Okay, so it's important, and I know it's like right here. I need to fill it up. So, but that's the important thing, and I'd love to hear from you about your canteen or your container that you put water in and use on a regular basis. Maybe you had one as a youth that was aluminum or metal, steel shaped. That's something, the sound that it made, that it made a juggly liquid sound when you walked. I'd love to hear that feedback. That's a wonderful gift, and I love hearing about it. So, and I know others would want to say that too. So definitely keep up that good hard work that you're doing with your scouts. And this is just one of those many things that we do without even really thinking about it. Hydration is so critical for youth that it eliminates any problems they do have. It minimizes it because they're not dealing with dehydration. So it just makes sense, right? So we do a lot of things for our scouts. So this is one of those things we need to keep track of and do. Keep up that good hard work and remember to be hydrated, okay? Set the example. Don't be the exception. That's the critical thing. Carry your water bottle with you. Make sure that you're that example that everybody says, oh, okay, ScouterStan, I'm going to carry my water, Yes, that's the important thing. Even if it's one of those disposable bottles at a meeting, it's fine. That's the critical thing that we need to keep in mind. And we do a lot, so let's keep up that good hard work. And if you're interested in the camp mode, have you ever heard of that? Camp mode on the phone? I know there's an airplane mode, right? Well, there's a camp mode on the phone. Yes, there actually is. Check out the video right there. I'll tell you more about it. Till next time, I'll see you on the trail.